Welcome back to another video on the channel. So we have reached the US Open quarter-final stage, the business time and the time where the best in the tournament face the best, and we get to find out who will take the titles home from New York. So before I get into today's video, when I'll be previewing and predicting the four women's quarter-finals, I just want to say that it's the most I've enjoyed a Grand Slam in a lot of years. I think there's been some fantastic stories with the emergence of, Emma Raducanu, Carlos Alcaraz, Leylah Fernandez. So many brilliant matches, but I think, Frances Tiafoe made a fantastic point in saying that the withdrawals of Serena Williams and Venus Williams and Roger Federer, Dominic Thiem, Rafa Nadal, they do certainly hinder the tournament, but they also give opportunity to new players to come through. In the women's side in particular, we had the early exits of Naomi Osaka and Ashley Barty, which has opened the draw up even further. We've had Barbara Krejcikova, unseeded player, win a Grand Slam tournament at the French Open early this year. So I think that's to sort of give renewed hope and even hope for the younger players. Look what Leylah Fernandez and Emma Raducanu are doing this tournament. It's just brilliant to see new players coming through, battling to reach the quarter-final stage, beating former Grand Slam champions. Brilliant for the future of the sport and brilliant entertainment for us fans. So I'm going to move on to previewing and predicting all four women's quarterfinals, starting with Emma Raducanu against Belinda Bencic. And Raducanu, as a British tennis fan, I've known about her for a good few years. I watched her play when she was 15, and I think sometimes when you watch a tennis player, you just know straight away that they've got something a bit special. Fantastic movement, natural ability on forehand and backhand, brilliant return of serve. Solid first serve, and you could see there was a few bits of a game that she needed to work on, but she's been tipped by the pundits and coaches in this country by a long time, and we're starting to see why she was hyped up as a very young player. And when she came through Wimbledon, got that main draw wild card, took huge advantage to reach the fourth round, beating former Grand Slam champion finalist in Marketa Vondrousova, putting up a very good fight against Alia Tomljanovic on a centre court debut before unfortunately having to retire. But since then she's come on leaps and bounds. I think she's used that experience very well. She's riding the wave, she's riding the momentum, she's playing some exceptional tennis, reached a final in Chicago, then got through qualifying of US Open without dropping a single set, and is yet to drop a single set as well in this main draw of US Open, which is just a fantastic feat. And I think, I guess I said at the start of the video there, I always knew Emma Raducanu was very good, but her performances this week have even blown me away. To drop just one game against Sara Sorribes Tormo, to drop just 3 games last night against Shelby Rogers, who'd beat Ashley Barty in the previous round. Just outstanding results. I think she's lost 15 games in 4 matches, which is pretty much unheard of in a Grand Slam, let alone for an 18-year-old wildcard. Emma's game is just in a perfect place at the moment. She looked a little bit nervous, I thought, last night in the opening couple of games. She was loved too, 15-40. But when she found her stride, that first serve, backed it up with the aggressive ball striking inside the baseline, the forehand, the backhand, really painting the lines consistently. She's a fantastic mover, got great athleticism. I think she had the crowd on the side, despite Rogers being American. I think the fans have took to Raducanu. It's a fantastic story. She shows emotion. She involves herself with the crowd, a good speaker on and off the court, and I think she's a fairy tale story and being took into by the New York crowd. I'm sure she'll have them on her side against Bencic, but there's no pressure now on Raducanu. I'm sure she'll have wanted to reach the third or fourth round. She'll fancy herself to beat the likes of Sorribes Tormo and Shelby Rogers, up against world number 11 Belinda Bencic, who's recently won a Tokyo Olympic gold medal. All the pressure's off Raducanu. That's not to say she won't go at the match wanting to win and expecting to win, but it's a little bit of a free hit, and that lack of pressure could bear in Raducanu's favour. But a game's in a fantastic spot at the moment, and this could be a time. The way she's flying past players at the moment, she's full of confidence, she's fully fit. She hasn't had any long exerting matches, which might be in her favour in the end of this match if it was to go for a deciding set, for example. But in Britain, and I'm sure her family and her coaches are just proud of the performances of Raducanu. She's 18 years old and she's got a huge future ahead of her. So moving on now to Belinda Bencic, who, as I said, is in a fantastic run of form, and she was actually my second pick to win this tournament. She produced a very, very strong performance yesterday to beat Iga Swiatek in the fourth round, and that was a really taking performance, and you could see that Bencic was really carrying the momentum from the Tokyo Olympics gold medal, and she's really come to the US Open believing that she can follow it up and win a first major Grand Slam title as well. In particular, I was impressed with Bencic's forehand. There's not many beat Iga Swiatek in a forehand battle, but I thought Bencic absolutely dominated it. Coming inside the baseline, letting rip on the forehands, cross court and down the line. I don't think Iga Swiatek got a great read on the Bencic forehand, but I think the best shot of Bencic's armoury is definitely the backhand return of serve. This could be, lots of breaks in this match. Raducanu is a fantastic returner, as is Belinda Bencic, so it could come down to who serves better. In terms of predicting the match, it's very tough. As I said, Raducanu is just in a fantastic run of form. She doesn't really have the pressure on her at this stage of the tournament as an 18-year-old wild card. Unfortunately, I'd love to see Emma do it, but I'm going to go with my head over my heart, and I think Bencic has probably got a little bit too much experience at this stage, on the big stage. She's just won Olympics gold, so I think she's going to have more confidence rather than nerves, and I've just been so impressed with the performances of her. She's beat better opposition in recent weeks, riding away from that gold medal, and I'm going to go with Bencic to edge 2 close sets against Raducanu, but I would love to see Emma pull it off. Moving on now to Karolina Pliskova against Maria Sakkari, and Pliskova is a player that I've always said I think is one of the most, gifted players to not win a Grand Slam title. She's come mightily close early this year in the Wimbledon final, where she produced a number of fantastic performances, was made to dig deep at the deciding sets and at the pivotal point in sets, and she came through most of them tests, and she's carried that form into the US. She's just sort of coasted through this draw. She's a player that now does consistently reach the quarterfinals and last 16 stages of Grand Slams, which is what you'd expect of a player of Pliskova's quality. But I think these courts are playing perfectly for her. She's a tall player, got a very strong first serve, likes to get over the ball, hit the flat forehand, and she's executing the game style very, very well, and that's going to make it tough to beat. Come against a good opponent yesterday in Pavlyuchenkova, but dispatched her pretty comfortably, and she's just going to be very, very tough to stop around the net. She's having lots of success. If the first serve's consistent, you can serve lots of aces, back it up with the heavy ground strokes, and I just think Pliskova's in a very, very good place at the moment with her game, full of confidence. She got a new coach at the back end of 2020, and I think that's sort of transformed the game a little bit. She seems to have some newfound confidence, a better mentality. She's producing the best tennis in the biggest moments, which is something that she hasn't done, I felt, over the years. And she's got the game to beat anybody on this fast hard court in New York. Moving on now to Maria Sakkari, who I'm a huge fan of, and she came through a marathon test last night against Bianca Andreescu, ending her 10-match winning streak at the US Open. With Sakkari, she's a player again, a little bit like Pliskova, who I've not felt has produced the best in the big moments in matches in recent years, but that's something that she is changing, and you can see last night that when she was a set down in the decider, the second set tie break was massive for her, being a set down, and she did seem to find the forehand, and she served impeccably well in that deciding set, which was the difference in the end. But with Sakkari, I thought over the last few years she was a player that was too one-dimensional. We know she's got one of the best forehands in the world, in my opinion, but she was always a player that I felt tried to hit too much too early. She made too many unforced errors. She needed to improve her all-round game, her speed around the court coverage, the defence, her counter-punching, the double-handed backhand, I think, has improved so much in the last couple of years. Defensively in particular, she's very good in the slide now. Getting that defensive backhand back into play, back into a deep position to try and maintain neutral in rallies, and then unleashing the forehand when the openings arise. But I think the backhand for Sakkari is one of the most improved shots on the WTA in the last couple of years. She creates fantastic angle, gets fantastic depth. when you add in her brilliant first serve that she's finding consistently this tournament, she's going to be very, very tough to stop. Similarly to Pliskova, she likes a fast hard court when, the balls are flying down the line. She can really unleash forehands down the line, and that's something that she's done incredibly well. And she played brilliantly well in that deciding set from love 2 down last night against Andreescu. And I think the fact that she's come through a tough match like that, she's battle hardened, she's had to fight under pressure, win big points, and it's something that she passed through with flying colours. In terms of a win, it's very, very tough to call. I am going to just go with Maria Sakkari in 3 sets. I think the serve and the forehand are the two biggest weapons for both players. I think it's about who executes, but I think the defence, the fitness, as I said, the core coverage, and particularly the defensive backhand, might slightly go into Sakkari's favour. So I'm going to go with the Greek player to come through in 3 sets. Moving on now to Elena Svitolina against Leylah Fernandez. And, Elena Svitolina, I've said for a long time, is arguably technically the best women's player in the world. She doesn't have the Grand Slam results to show for it. She's been in a very, very tough era of women's tennis. She's still only 26. She's still got time in her side. And I do think she'll win a hardcore Grand Slam in the next 2 or 3 years, but I have been saying that for quite a while now. And perhaps this is a time. She performed very well at the Olympics. And I liked what she said the other day in a press conference at the US Open, that she's felt over the past couple of years, she's played very good hard-court tennis, particularly at Grand Slams, but she's often been a little bit passive and reluctant to attack from inside the baseline, and that's something I've felt myself as well. Of the extended rallies of forehand and double-handed backhand are very safe, very consistent, high percentage shots that she doesn't seem to make too many unforced errors on. But I've never thought that Svitolina's had that shot to come in and finish rallies early, to execute rally winning shots that can win points early, and she doesn't have to drag out 20-30 shot rallies, which can be very exerting not only in matches but also down the line in Grand Slams when you're playing 7 matches is very, very difficult. I think if Svitolina can perhaps finish points early, take a few more risks, a few more lines, because the shots that I think she's very capable of hitting, then I think she's capable of beating anybody, and she's done that against Halep. Halep, albeit she's been out for a long time, and I don't think she was at a fully fitness and at her best that match. Svitolina broke down the defences of hers quite easily on a number of times, and I think if this is her new game style, where she is a little bit more aggressive, she does step inside the baseline a little bit more to break down the defences of Halep, who's arguably one of the best defensive players in the world, can only give her confidence moving on. Now Leylah Fernandez, what a story she's had. Again, a lefty, 18 years old, she's been one of the players that's being talked about who's going to come through and potentially dominate women's tennis in the next few years. This has been a real breakthrough event, to come from a set and a breakdown to 4-time Grand Slam champion and defending champion Naomi Osaka, to then repeat that feat and come back from a set and a breakdown against former Grand Slam champion Angelique Kerber in round 4 is just a remarkable story. Everything about Leylah Fernandez, the way she interacts with the crowd, the defence, her movement, her speed, the match-winning forehand, the double-handed backhand, the net play, everything about her, you can just see she's got that star talent similar to Emma Raducanu. She's really riding the wave, the momentum, but you do have to question, unfortunately, how much of those 2 matches took out of her. She's only 18 years old, but she's never been this far in a Grand Slam before. She's came through two very tough physically and mental matches against Kerber and Osaka. Can she lift herself and reproduce those 2 performances? I certainly wouldn't bet against it, but I like the experience and I've liked what I've seen a lot of Svitolina this week. I think the fact that the draws opened up has offered Svitolina a real chance to win her first Grand Slam title. As I've said, I think technically she's one of the best female players in the world. She's going to make Leylah Fernandez really, really work for another win, and I think with Svitolina playing the way she is with those high percentage shots, not making unforced errors, she's going to keep Leylah Fernandez on the run a lot, on the defence, and could have just tied the legs out and forced errors out of the Fernandez game, but this is going to be a thriller match. I think it's arguably the best women's quarter-final on paper, because you're just not sure quite what you're going to get from Fernandez. If she can reproduce those two performances of Sakkari and Kerber, then she's going to be very difficult to beat. But I am going to go with Elena Svitolina in 3 sets. And finally, moving on to Barbara Krejcikova against Aryna Sabalenka. Krejcikova again, one of those players that is riding the wave. She came through unseeded at the French Open and dominated pretty much everyone. Came through a very strong final and registered her maiden Grand Slam title win. I wasn't sure whether she'd be really suited to a fast hard court, but she's proven me wrong. A win against Garbina Muguruza at the US Open is monumental for her mentally. She hasn't really produced to the Grand Slam on a hard court yet in her career, but to reach the quarter-final stage and beat Garbina Muguruza in straight sets really tells you that she's in a rich vein of form. She can produce in a hard court, and she's here to potentially win her second Grand Slam title of 2021. With Krejcikova, I think it's just her consistency, which is her biggest attribute. She's got a very strong first serve. I think she served 10 aces yesterday against Muguruza. The forehand, the backhand, her net play, defence, the depth is very tough to beat. You have to be absolute best to beat Krejcikova. She's got lots of variation. She likes to come to the net. She's got a great backhand slice. And she's a very, very good problem solver for Krejcikova, and not a lot of top players have actually played her due to her emergence in 2021, which I think is aiding her as well. I'm not sure she'll have met Sabalenka before in the past, but yeah, she's in a player that's in this good a form and has recent Grand Slam winning experience, playing the way she is without many unforced errors at all, hitting plenty of winners, hitting lots of aces, has got to be taken very, very seriously. But she's up against one of the hardest hitting Grand Slam players in recent years in Aryna Sabalenka, who's just in flying form. I haven't actually seen much of Sabalenka. Didn't manage to catch her last 16 match against Elise Mertens, which when I was mightily impressed. One thing I will say about Sabalenka, she served lots of double faults in that match, which she won't be at the fault to do against Barbara Krejcikova. If Sabalenka serves well and backs it up with that monster forehand, I think she's going to be very difficult to stop in this tournament, let alone this match. I think if this match was on a clay court, then you'd certainly go with the variation in the slice and deception and movement of Krejcikova. But I think if Sabalenka can serve and return well, get on top early in rallies, get a short ball from Krejcikova, try and keep the points short, then you would expect Sabalenka to win this one. And I think Sabalenka should be winning this match on a fast hard court with the weapons that she's got, with the power, the pace, the serve, the return. It's really set up for a Sabalenka win. She couldn't really pick a hard court that she wanted to play Krejcikova on other than in New York. It's been very quick in front of a big crowd. Sabalenka is starting to reach the business end of Grand Slams consistently now, which is nice to see. It's something that we've been waiting for a good couple of years. But I do expect Sabalenka to hit through the defences of Krejcikova enough times in this one to come through in 3 sets. So yeah, thanks for watching another video on the channel. If you do have any predictions yourself for the women's quarterfinals, do leave them in the comment section below, and I will get back to those. I always enjoy reading them. I will also be bringing out semi-finals and finals previews and predictions, as well as on the men's side. So if you do want to check those out, do subscribe. Again, thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.